Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Paul Brown Show. This evening, my guest will be Mr. Gerald Johnson. He's the CEO, publisher of the Charlotte Post. How you doing there, Mr. Johnson?
I'm doing great. Hope you are.
Outstanding. Welcome to the Paul Brown Show. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself, Mr. Gerald Johnson.
Born and raised here in Charlotte, North Carolina, many years ago. Went to school, West Charlotte graduate, Lincoln University graduate, Villanova graduate. Worked in Pennsylvania for many years in computer science area. Came back to Charlotte, started working with Bank of America and Johnson C. Smith University. And then through a happenstance, ended up with the Charlotte Post in '86.
The Charlotte Post. Tell us about this successful newspaper that we see all around our area.
Well, successful is relative, but the company is doing pretty well. We've been around in my family since '74. My father took over the paper in '74, ran it from '74 to '86 when he passed, and I was lucky enough to be asked to run the paper. Well, I wasn't lucky. It was I was suckered into it in '86. My father asked me to sit in for him while he was sick, and he was going to take 3 months off to get better. Asked me to come in and run it for him, and we had a history of bumping heads simply because I had one way of doing things, he had another way. But he asked me to come in and work for him for 3 months, and then at the time I was with Bank of America. But he said if I could come in and work it for him in 3 months, then when he got back, correct, I could go on and do whatever I wanted to do. Well, in the 3-month period, he died. And interestingly, in talking to his doctor said that he had acute leukemia, so he was given only 3 months to live. So he knew he was going to die within that time frame, but he was clever enough to get me in the seat because I guess he knew once I got there, I would stay. And he was right. Here I am, still here.
When your father went out and purchased the Charlotte Post, what was his vision?
He didn't purchase it. My father wanted to be in the newspaper business. He graduated from high school, went to the service, started working in newspaper business in the military. Came back, most people don't know it, but he was the first African American to work for the Charlotte, at the time, Charlotte News here in the Queen City. And he started his own newspaper called the Queen City Gazette, which lasted for about a year. The Charlotte Post was at that time being run by, well, in fact, it was the Tross family who owned the Charlotte Post at the time. When Mr. Tross died, the paper turned over to a Garland Atkins out of Belmont, North Carolina, who was a Caucasian gentleman who had multiple newspapers in the area, but none of them were African American. And so he was the printer for most of these newspapers, and he took over the Charlotte Post because of the printing debt that was still owed. But he had no idea of how to run an African American newspaper or no interest. So he asked my father to run it for him. And so from '69, I guess from about '65 to roughly '74, my father ran it. And then in '74, he purchased it from Mr. Atkins.
Okay. What did you learn watching your father in this newspaper business? Because just like you said, you wasn't really involved in that type of arena.
That's an interesting question, Paul. we would sit around and we participated in the business with no interest as a kid. Watched and we would talk about things at the dinner table about the newspaper business, but I had no interest in it. And the day that I had to take over for him, without even knowing it, I just knew what to do. I mean, it was, and I had no idea that I knew what to do, but when I was put in the position, I knew what to do simply because I grew up listening and following and watching him all those years, and it was just sort of an automatic thing. I just knew what to do the first day in the seat, and been doing it ever since.
What impact was your father's passing on your life?
Devastating. It was devastating. We had sort of, especially when it came to business, we had a sort of a rocky relationship. He was brilliant in terms of journalism. He was brilliant in terms of just being on the streets, and my whole background was technical and business, and we just had conflicts with a lot of things because of that. But his death just devastated me because he was my best friend. But he was a great newspaper guy, very good newspaper man.
What would you think your father would say to you now, 26 years later, after he passed the baton over to you?
I hope he will be proud of where we've taken the publication. My brother as well is over there.
Correct.
And hopefully he would be very proud of what we've done and the new aspects that we've added on to the publication. When he died, the publication was not electronic at all. We had no computers, nothing in the sense of technology. It was all cut and paste type of layout, which took days, not hours, days. And so we brought it into the modern age. We expanded a lot of things, and we've helped the company grow to a point where it is today. And I think he would be proud. In fact, I'm pretty sure he would be. And just the fact that we kept it going. I think he wanted us to keep it going, but I don't think he had any, because none of us showed any interest in it as kids. Okay. And so just the mere fact that we kept it going, I think he'd be very proud of that fact. Hasn't been easy though, let me just say that. It hasn't been easy, but it's been worth it.
What type of effect has the economy been on the total operation of the Charlotte Post, especially in today's economy?
All these questions gonna be hard like this, or what?
I don't know, sir. This is what the audience.
This is what they want to hear.
Yes, sir. This is what,
okay.
You know,
okay. Like any business, the economy is one of the major factors in your success. I mean, it really is. And the economy is not a straight line situation. It's like this. It's up and down continuously, and fortunately, we realize that it's an up and down situation. So in the good times, we try to be a little more conservative than normal, but in the bad times, we're a little more aggressive, which a lot of people say that doesn't make any sense. But we have been able to survive simply because when the economy turns bad, we do a lot of downsizing, and then we work with fewer assets, fewer resources to get the job done and save money that way. And when the economy starts picking back up, we don't go out of our way to immediately start putting those resources and assets back in place. We wait until we get to a point where we think it'll make more sense business-wise. But it's a part of being in business. The economy is one of the major factors that you have to be attuned to on a regular basis, because it's going to impact everything that you do, good, bad, or indifferent.
How vital is it to have a staff that's really committed to the successful operation of not only the Charlotte Post, but to any business?
It's the lifeblood of any business. We couldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for the staff. I have a tremendous staff. The best journalists I will put my journalists up against any in any market. They're just very talented, very loyal individuals. Got a strong finance department, got a very strong sales staff, and so we are very, very lucky to have the staff that we have. The other thing about, you talked about the economy.
Correct.
The one of the big things that happens in a bad economy is when you lay off, or people will actually lose their loyalty to you, because the downsizing and things that happen with a bad economy will cause employees to lose interest and become disloyal and leave. But my employees most of them have been with me well over 20 years. And the new ones that come on learn from the older ones, but they bring in new aspects of life and business to the older ones, and so it's a good marriage. But the employees are what makes us go. I mean, I couldn't do all the work, definitely, and it requires a team effort, and we got a very, very good team. I put them up against anybody, any companies, our size or bigger. I'm very proud of them.
What separates Charlotte Post from your competitors?
We're good. And they're okay. And when you say competitors, I'm talking about, I don't know, we are an African American publication, but we compete at a community level against any publication, and we belong to the North Carolina Press Association, and for newspapers with the circulation 10,000 and greater, which means that we compete against the Business Journal and other publications of that nature. We don't compete with the Observer, because that's a daily, but other publications that come out once a week, we compete with them, and we can hold our own with them. However, we get classified as an African American publication, and there's another group of publications that are geared to African American audiences, and we belong to that organization as well, and we are considered one of the top in the nation in that group. We're considered one of the best in North Carolina in the North Carolina Press Association, and so we aren't afraid to compete. I'm a very competitive person, and I like to win, and we do a very good job. And again, our staff puts us ahead of most.
I read that, I know you're an African American man. Do you feel like only African Americans read your publications, or do you feel like the paper is so interesting that all ethnic groups are able to, to get into it? Diverse.
It's that's another great question. From the newspaper itself,
Yes,
the
sir.
printed piece, we can track that in terms of readership and who's actually reading it, and that's roughly 30% of our readership is non-African American,
Okay.
based on the printed piece. Now, what we can't track as easily as it relates to race and things of that nature is the internet. We have an e-edition, we have our internet exposure, and we can't track ethnicity or race with that, but from the printed piece of it, we can easily track that, and 30% of that is non-African American, and so, yeah, our readership is very diverse.
Correct. And how does that make you feel, knowing that it's not